Unfortunately, Glacier National Park is losing its namesake.
Climate change isn't exactly the easiest topic to get lost from, but comedy is becoming a surprising tool in this very serious crisis.
We are, as we described, filmmakers and comedians, and we make comedic nature documentaries. Ooh, I know.
Coming up, it's not just the pros. Activists are also using humor, sketches, and online memes to make people think.
I always try to get my haters to debate me, but I don't know, maybe they're just too scared to debate me.
Plus, what does it actually take to be funny when you're talking about the environment?
It is a lot of preaching to a very depressed choir.
And if the choir is depressed, you can bet the audience is also tricky. Is climate change even real? Just 2 degrees is on. Now,
who's funnier to you, climate deniers or climate activists?
Oh.
Our first act on Stand Up for the Planet, climate journalist and guy from a small island, Reagan.
Is this working? Can you guys hear me? Okay, so climate change, huh? Man, it's getting hot outside. Is anybody else sweating? I mean, it must be global warming, right? Oh, okay. I left my ice cream in the sun yesterday, and it melted. That's what ice cream does. Kind of like the Arctic, right? But I won't know because I've never been to the Arctic. Is climate change even real?
Get off the stage!
Okay, I'm sorry. Please, I'm sorry. Just give me 1 minute. Okay, so maybe I'm not winning over this crowd, but who needs jokes when the headlines are already stand-up material? I mean, billionaires crying broke when it's time to pay for climate finance, oil companies saying they're going green while drilling record profits out of the ground. And then there's Donald Trump, still proving that climate denial is a successful campaign strategy. So instead of me bombing up here, let's take a look at the real comedy club, where climate headlines serve up new punchlines every single day.
Welcome to, shall we say, the Global Climate Comedy Hour, where every headline sounds like a joke.
The carbon footprint is a hoax made up by people with evil intentions.
In late September, the world's biggest mic got a hot take. US President Donald Trump called the climate crisis the greatest con job and mocked clean energy from the UN stage.
It's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion.
Then he went after activists and blamed them for what he called brutal green energy policies.
I guess they want to kill all the cows. They want to do things that are just unbelievable.
Meanwhile, Trump's moving to cancel $13 billion in clean energy funds in the US. Apparently, the punchline is policy. You could not script this if you tried. As Washington trashed renewables on the UN floor, America's rival China rolled out a new, modest but real, emissions cut target.
各国应当坚持共同但有区别的责任原则
and bragged about its renewable surge. Not perfect, sure, but side by side, the contrast is laughable.
Its own carbon footprint by 37%. Think of that. Congratulations, Europe. Great job.
In Europe, they say they'll phase out inefficient fossil subsidies. But the numbers keep climbing. Over $130 billion of 2023 subsidies either extend beyond 2025 or have no end date at all. We're quitting eventually, they say.
Prime Minister of this great country.
In the UK, leaders talk tough on oil and gas, while still backing new drilling in the North Sea. One of the biggest projects, the Rosebank oil field, even had to rewrite its paperwork just to account for the pollution it would cause once the oil is burned.
And Norway is also a leading energy nation, important for Europe, providing about 35% of Europe's gas.
And in Norway, oil investment is set to peak this year because nothing says transition leadership like a last-minute shopping spree. And here's the corporate twist. Remember those net zero promises? Well, Shell quietly scrapped its 2035 targets and watered down its 2030 goal. The only thing shrinking faster than emissions is ambition. Meanwhile, countries living the crisis are still waiting for the tab to be paid. In Africa alone, climate damage already costs $7 to $15 billion every year, rising to $50 billion by 2050. But wealthy nations only pledged a few hundred million, and even less than half of that actually landed. Not funny at all, unless you're the one dodging the check. And through all of this, rich governments keep saying they can't afford serious climate finance, which sure is ironic when you see that the US is handing fossil fuel giants $40 billion in subsidies this year alone.
So the headlines keep getting more ironic, definitely funnier. The problem is the planet isn't laughing. That doesn't stop actual comedians from raising awareness of the climate crisis through laughter. Brad Einstein is many things, including a writer, puppeteer, and nature enthusiast. So I've got to say, trying stand-up comedy is terrifying. Brad, how did I do?
Great. And you are doing the most important thing that you need to be doing to eventually become more confident and more effective as a stand-up, which is to say, bombing terribly. That is a really important step to only bombing a little bit and then eventually not bombing at all.
Yeah, that's hilarious, Brad. When did you first think, okay, yeah, climate change is terrifying, but you know what? I'm going to do jokes about it.
So I had been doing comedy in Chicago for a few years, and to help pay bills while I was doing comedy at a certain point, I was copywriting as well. And the comedy that I was doing a lot of sketch and kind of social and political satire with this theater called the Second City. And so I had a lot of like political bits and satirical moments and a lot of comedy that I was doing at the time. But then I was doing this advertising work on this side. And one of the gigs I got that I tell a very long, convoluted joke that I won't torture you with right now. I signed a contract with an anonymous energy company, and I walked in the first day and found out that I was going to be the Twitter voice of ExxonMobil. And I got an educate. I didn't know anything about energy companies. I didn't know anything about oil companies like outside of the Exxon Valdez, and I just got an education firsthand on greenwashing, and I was like, oh, this is bad. And I'd be in meetings at this ad agency and raise my hand and be like, guys, I don't think this might not be true. Is anyone else concerned that what we're saying might not be accurate? And was surprised when everybody just kind of blinked at me. So after that experience, I was like, oh, this is incredibly messed up. And because I grew up Catholic, I was like, well, I must atone for the guilt. And so I've been started at that point weaving in climate messaging and those themes within my work.
Okay, so then do you ever stop and think, wait, am I making this too funny? Like, is there a line where the joke could actually drown out the climate urgency?
I think that's a really interesting point. I don't ever think that, because I think finding a joke that lands within this space that like works solidly within a number of crowds and a number of scenarios, no, not even a little bit. Because I will say I know a few organizations where they will, especially when it comes to stand-up specifically, they'll be like, oh, we'll do a stand-up show and we encourage our stand-ups to try 1 to 3 jokes like within the space and be like, hey, what does it feel like to write jokes about this content? And they'll be like, oh, and that is a very successful show when our ratio of sort of messaging to jokes is 95% jokes, and we just encourage folks to try something new. Whereas I think in other formats you can change that ratio dramatically, but there have been few and far between have there been moments where I'm like, oh, the comedy is drowning it out. I think sometimes the messaging can kind of like not have teeth and not be funny enough. But I would say, yeah, I would say there isn't usually a time that I say like, this is too funny. All these jokes about the world burning to a crisp is too funny.
Okay, then does your comedy have any effects on people who generally, I guess, roll their eyes on climate talk?
Yeah, yes. I would say there's a combination of two things. There is sometimes that element of an audience exists, but I would also say so often we are also in the room bringing joy to usually very tough conversations. Like, for example, I'm at New York Climate Week, where it is a lot of preaching to a very depressed choir. So in situations like that, we're a real breath of fresh air, and you can kind of start with some assumptions, like that the audience is aware of certain terms, that the audience kind of jumps on themes or opinions without you having to kind of hold their hand and walk them to that point. I think a really good example is I did a bit about how much I think a good example is in Climate Week, for example, I did a bit about how Mars sucks. And it's a bad planet. Anybody who tells you Mars is great is a liar. I won't get into it because it's a little expletive riddled. But if I did that to an audience that didn't do a lot of climate work, you have to do a little bit more work up top to kind of get them to that point. Meanwhile, I can say, expletive Mars, am I right? And immediately a Climate Week audience is like, yeah, we also have a lot of opinions about Mars and people who want to send our species there. So it, just like any audience, climate audiences, after you've been doing it for a little while, you're like, oh, this will hit really hard. In the exact same way that like, oh, this joke will hit on the coasts, but it won't hit in the middle of the Midwest if you're in America. Like, recalibrating for audiences is something you always kind of got to do.
What exactly, Brad, is your goal when you're doing climate comedy? Is it to win people over? And if so, how tough is that to do when climate change as a topic is so polarizing?
That's really interesting. To win people over is a really great question that has become muddied a little bit, especially in America, because our discourse is cuckoo bananas right now. Like, half the discourse, especially around climate, it has become this weird. It is a non-issue that has become a huge issue, and there are people just arguing really basic facts about this particular thing. So I would say, rather than change people's minds, I would say it is a part of my life, and it is like so much comedy comes from what you've experienced. And to me, it is like a normal thing to talk about. So I would say, if anything, it's more to normalize really than to change people's minds, because I feel like the people whose minds need to be changed right now are cuckoo bananas.
Who's funnier to you, climate deniers or climate activists?
They're both hilarious in different ways. Climate deniers are climate deniers are both sadder and funnier, because the world they live in is is tough. But I would say the not self-aware climate activists, there's a lot of joy there. Let's just say that there's a lot of joy of not self-aware climate activists, because climate activists, we're such tryhards. We're such tryhards. And like, oh, you can be right, but you're still annoying. And I say that as someone who, with the points I'm trying to make, I'm like, I know I'm right, but boy, oh boy, I'm annoying. I'm very annoying. So there's great things about both.
Brad, it was really nice meeting you. Wish me luck in trying to do what you do, although I know I can't, but thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Great. That's so wonderful. Reagan, thank you so much for having me. Keep doing what you're doing. I think the best and most interesting thing right now is that using comedy to talk about climate issues is new, which means you can explore so much. So keep on exploring, man.
Right, it's time for Just to Matter, the segment about the small things with big impacts. Today, burps. Yes, burps. You know, we often laugh when someone lets one rip, but when it comes from a cow, well, that's more than just hot air. When cows eat, the grass ferments in their stomachs and produces methane. Methane is over 80 times stronger than carbon dioxide at trapping heat in the atmosphere in the short term. A single cow can release more than 100 kilos of methane a year. Now, multiply that by the world's 1 billion cows, and the number gets wild. But scientists are testing fixes like seaweed feed, which in some trials has cut methane by up to 80%. Garlic additives have also been found to change a cow's gut microbes and reduce gas production. And then there are even cow vaccines designed to block methane-making microbes in the stomach. If these solutions scale up, the payoff could be massive, as cutting methane from livestock is one of the fastest ways to slow global warming. Releasing wind can be pretty funny, sure, but from cows, they are no laughing matter. Okay, I think I might understand a little better how to use comedy to chat about climate change. So, a huge world leader called climate change the greatest con job ever, which is kind of rich coming from someone the legacy media describes as having built a career selling, let's just say, less than great products. I mean, if someone knows a con, maybe we should listen. Okay, I'm still not there yet. I think I need more help. My friend Arjun Kumar is a climate activist who focuses on food and makes some pretty interesting videos. Arjun, thanks for showing up. You don't make jokes about the environment, but I do find you naturally funny. But before we get to what you do specifically, is comedy, in your opinion, an effective way of getting a climate point across?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think comedy is just a great way of exposing hypocrisy and corruption and something in a way that's more digestible to people. And it just encourages, that engagement in a lot of these crisis-y issues, which can sometimes be a bit too intimidating for people. So I think when you have like a humorous way of presenting the information in a very easy to understand joke, people will actually want to look it up more later on versus, listening to a politician's entire speech about climate change, which, I don't even know if people do that, but I think people will get more interested if a comedian speaks about a political issue, and then they'll actually go watch speeches on the politics on that. So I think it's a way to just introduce people to it in a way that's fun and engaging, especially when they're watching, TV, when they're watching TRT World or they're on social media. They don't want to get bombarded with all this, crisis, depressing issues all the time. Sometimes they just need something funny. But if it is a serious issue, maybe saying it in a funny way can actually really help to get more people involved and engaged.
Based on my observation, you don't seem to aim for comedy when you do videos, but you do find yourself in funny scenarios. Does this format work better than the preaching some people do?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the reason is, I think with preaching, it can come off as sometimes egotistical, sometimes, especially if someone doesn't know who you are, they're going to be like, who is this person preaching to me? What is their, authority on the matter? What's their credibility? Are they qualified to speak? Versus just speaking comedy, no one's going to say, oh, are you a professional comedian, or are you, do you have credentials on being a comedian? So I think when you go about it in a more humorous way, it just shows that you're authentic. You're just being you. You're being funny, and it's. Everyone likes comedy. I've never met someone that hates comedy or says, "I don't want to watch your video because you're funny." So I think it's a great way to just introduce yourself to people that otherwise might not watch your video. So, I think being funny first is more important than preaching your message, because once you're funny and you've earned the laughs of your audience, then they'll probably listen to you preach if you wanted to preach. But I feel like starting off with your personality and humor is a good way to entertain and engage people in the beginning.
You talk about the benefits of veganism in your videos, which is a very sensitive topic. I wonder if humor breaks people's defenses in a way so that you can sneak in a serious conversation with them.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head right there. I think a lot of people have this firewall against veganism, or I call it the matrix, right? They just want to continue on their day and live in that matrix. But I think when you have a humorous meme-like interpretation in your content, it kind of puts people's guards down, like you said. And when their guards are down, they're more like, okay, actually, this guy's not as annoying as I thought the vegans are supposed to be. He's not preaching to me like those crazy vegans that I heard about. So he's a funny guy. I like his personality. Maybe I'll listen to what he has to say. So I think it's really good for just getting people to put their guard down, because now they're watching your videos, especially it could be someone that's super anti-vegan prior, and now they're listening to what you have to say, and they're like, okay, I actually like how this vegan is saying it versus the other vegan who was just screaming in my face. And I mean, I'm sure sometimes screaming in your face can work, depending on your audience. I've seen it work if you're like, one of those types of activists. But I think on social media, I think on television, people are finished with work and they're just unwinding and they just want to relax. They need some entertainment. So I don't think that's the proper medium to be really preaching and yelling at someone, unless that's what you're going on television to just do, and you are a very humble person. You're like, all right, someone please educate me and yell at me and preach at me on something. Wouldn't be those people that exist, but I think for the most part, people come on the media to be entertained. So I think it's great for that.
Has anyone ever told you they laughed at your video, then stopped eating meat?
I don't think they've laughed. They've told me that I've laughed at my video and stopped eating meat. I think they've told me that, like, I find your videos entertaining, and then they would tell me I find your videos inspirational, and then they would tell me, like, the final phase would be like, okay, I'm gonna go vegan because I really enjoy watching your videos. So I think the hook has always been making them laugh and getting them entertained, and then over the course of a couple of months or maybe even years, then they eventually be like, oh, okay, I see what you're saying. I understand your message. I guess I'll go vegan. But I guess to put it simply, yeah, they have laughed at my videos and then they have gone vegan sometime after.
Well, Arjun, thanks, my friend. Great to touch base with you. And I hope somehow I can borrow your skills to improve our reporting on climate issues.
Well, Reagan, I think you have a lot of opportunities to be able to make this thing work. So I think, firstly, just remember to keep things relatable and start with, observations on pop culture. Start with things that people find funny and that they're already talking about. And maybe even talk about the systems, poke fun at the systems instead of people, and try to find maybe memes that are already trending and try to reinterpret that into something worthy of something that can be said in a climate change, language or something like that. I mean, dude, you'll be fine. Just be yourself. And I think as long as you're having a great time and you're laughing yourself, I think other people will enjoy the show.
So here's my last joke, except it's not really a joke. I mean, I came here to try this stand-up thing because, hey, if we can laugh about the state of the world, then maybe it hurts less. The truth is, the climate crisis isn't really funny, at least not to me. It's awkward, scary, overwhelming even, and honestly, maybe that's why my jokes today didn't land. I guess I don't have what it takes to be a comedian. I'll just stick to journalism, I guess. At least then, when nobody laughs, I can always say they're just processing.